and I have the pleasure of welcoming you to Western. So on the screen behind me is the agenda for what we're going to walk through for today's presentation. And we'll start with what says insights from the Vice Provost. That could actually be a really long presentation or a really short one. We'll see. So before I get started, I would like to note that perhaps start by explaining what is the Vice Provost. Vice Provost of the grad school is similar to a dean of a faculty. So basically, I'm the chief administrator for graduate studies at Western. That sounds very administrative. I do interact with students. I'm happy to answer student questions whenever you have them. The door of grad studies is always open. Please don't see us as something that's purely bureaucratic. What I would like to do before I get started is introduce what I see as my primary team. I have two associate vice provosts. Dr. Peter Simpson is currently in Columbia recruiting grad students, and Dr. Lorraine Davies is here, and I'm going to ask her to stand and wave. Even though it's dark, you probably won't see her. Okay, a little bit about Western. Some of you are new to Western, some of you have been at Western for a while, some of you have had experience with other degrees at Western. To give you the really high-level quick background to Western. Western was founded in 1878. We've been in our current location since 1916. We're located on the traditional land of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, Lenni-Lenape, and Attawandaron peoples. They have a long-standing relationship with this region in southwestern Ontario. Western is comprised of 11 faculties, and you probably will meet the various deans and people within the faculties that house your program somewhere over the course of the next couple of weeks. We have 3 affiliated university colleges, Brescia, Huron, and King's, who each have a graduate program as well. Total enrollment at Western is about 38,000, including about 6,000 grad students. One thing to learn about Western quickly is that we are diverse. Grad studies at Western is very diverse. Grad studies includes graduate diplomas, professional master's degrees, course-based master's degrees, thesis-based master's degrees, professional doctorates, and dissertation-based doctorates. You may have students in the same program as you that you meet over the coming days who might actually be doing a rather different program, even though you're in the same overall program. We have a large proportion of international students at Western, and in a nutshell, Western welcomes diversity and embraces diversity of any kind. A really high-level look by the numbers, and you really can't see those numbers very clearly, but this gives you a bit of an indication of the distribution of domestic and international. Overall, about 21% of the graduate enrollment at Western is international. It's higher at the doctorate level. At the doctorate level, we're currently about 25 to 26% international, and a little bit lower on the master's side. Of our grad population, about 38% of you are doctorate students. The balance are masters. And we've tipped the balance now in having more women grad students than we have men, which I have to say I take some pride in, because as a Western grad, I can say it was definitely not that way in my day as a grad student. So I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about how to be successful in grad school. I'm going to talk really quickly about the importance of goals, mentoring, professional development, and balance and wellness. So to be successful in grad school, one of the things you need to have are goals. Goals are going to drive the decisions that you make. You need to have a sense of what do you want from grad studies? What is it you want to achieve? Where are you headed with your life? Some of you may have really clearly articulated long-term goals. Others may not, and that's okay. But try to have some short-term goals. If you have no goals defined, it makes it difficult to make decisions. Have a sense of where you see yourself headed. Perhaps some of you know where you're headed 10 years from now. That's great. But at least have a sense of where you might be headed next year. This is going to help you explore opportunities that will enrich your program. For example, if you have the option to take elective courses, choose them wisely to align with your goals. We have dual degree opportunities. We have collaborations and agreements with a large number of universities internationally that allow you to do a dual degree. You can do 2 PhDs at the same time, spending half your time at Western and half your time at another university. We have collaborative programs. These are programs that exist at Western and can enrich your current program. It's a way of getting supplementary knowledge and experience. There are visiting student opportunities. You can take a course at another university and get credit for it here. You can spend time doing research at another university. And there are lots of interdisciplinary research opportunities. But to make the most of those, you need to have a sense of what you want to get out of this. Supervision and mentoring. Sounds simple, but it's probably the most important ingredient in grad studies. Grad studies is more than just completing a set of courses. To do well in grad studies, you need to have a mentor. You need to have someone who introduces you to the culture of your discipline and profession. In research-based programs, this is often your research supervisor. In professional programs and course-based programs, you may have a number of mentors. It may be someone who practices professionally, or it may be a faculty member in your program. Whoever that person is and however they formally define that role, these people are important to you. They're the ones who help open doors to the profession and the discipline. They help you they help you to learn the language of the discipline, how to write for your discipline or your profession. This is a really important piece. In any interpersonal relationship, which is what the mentoring relationship is, things change over time. The relationship changes. If you've just arrived here and have met your supervisor or mentor for the first time, or perhaps you haven't met them yet, they're still pretty much a stranger to you, unless you had the opportunity to work with them as an undergraduate or take a course with them as an undergraduate. But even if you have, the relationship is different once you get into grad school. If you think of this as a trajectory, it's no longer a linear trajectory. You've just jumped up to a different plateau in entering grad school. The interpersonal relationship between you and your mentor is going to have a pretty important effect on your grad studies. It'll start probably a little more formal, it'll get a little more relaxed over time, may get a little more formal at times as you need a little more prodding or a little more supervision. That relationship is dynamic. Expect it to change. Expect that there will be times that you will feel that you're being criticized or you're being pushed. That's your mentor's job. That's what we expect them to do. How many of you, and I really can't see if your hands go up or not, have met your mentor or supervisor already? Okay, I see some movement out there, so some of you have. Have you figured out what to call him or her? That's one of the most common questions that we hear is, okay, they were Professor Miller when I took an undergrad course with them. What do I call them now? Most of them will tell you what you should call them, and if they don't, ask. Ask is something that you're going to hear repeatedly from us. If you have questions, ask them. Even the most simple and basic questions like, so what do I call you? I typically tell my students when I meet with them the first time, don't call me Dr. Miller. That's a very formal title, and I'm actually not all that comfortable with it. I don't think of myself as Dr. Miller, I think of myself as Linda. So I typically say, just call me Linda. I once sat in the airport in Toronto listening to, or actually maybe not listening to, not paying attention to the fact that Air Canada was paging Dr. Miller for about 45 minutes, when I finally went, oh, shoot, that might be me. And was really quite embarrassed when I got to the counter and they said, are you Dr. Miller? And I said, I'm Linda Miller. And they said, yes, you're Dr. Miller. And I said, I'm sorry. So, silly things, or they might seem silly, like what do I call you? Ask. If they haven't been really clear and said, call me Linda, ask what you should call them. The student-mentor relationship. I said it's important, and it is important. There are things that you can do to optimize how effective it is. The relationship is most effective when expectations are clear. So this gets back again to that notion of having some goals. And it's best when communication is frequent and it's clear. If you're going to have a good relationship with your supervisor, you have to communicate with them. And don't assume they have a sense of what you're doing or what you're thinking. Tell them. Ask the questions that you have. What do you need to do to make sure that it's a good relationship? Be self-directed. Don't wait to be told to go look something up. Be inquisitive. Ask questions. Be prepared. If they suggest that you go look something up and read through it, then you probably should go look it up and read through it. And be respectful. Respectful of time, and probably even more importantly, be respectful of criticism. We're not all really good at delivering criticism. Supervisors are learning as they go as well. Some supervisors are really experienced, are really great. Some supervisors are newer at what they do. We're all just people too. It is an interpersonal relationship, and sometimes when we communicate with our students, we think we're being clear, we think we're being gentle with our criticism and feedback, but your feedback to us on how we're doing is important as well. If you run into difficulty, what do you do? Who do you turn to? So if you have questions in your program or something's come up, you don't know how to handle it, any issue whatsoever, who do you go to? First line of who to go to is typically your supervisor or your mentor. If you're not getting the answer that you need, or they're not able to help you, or you're not comfortable going to your supervisor, sometimes students don't want to go to their supervisor to ask a question about their supervisor. So you might want to go talk to somebody else. Your graduate program chair is a really valuable resource to you. You typically will meet the grad program chair in your program orientation. Make note of their name and their face. This person is your new best friend. The department chair is another really important resource for you. The associate dean for grad programs in your faculty. Every faculty at Western has an associate dean responsible for grad programs. If you haven't found out who that is yet, ask. SGPS, the Associate Vice Provost, Lorraine or Peter, or me. Our door is never closed. We get students asking us questions, sometimes because they're not comfortable asking the program. Sometimes students will say, I'm kind of embarrassed to ask this program, and I don't want to ask it of anybody in my program in case they think they shouldn't have admitted me. And when we hear this kind of those questions, they're usually really good questions. So don't ever be afraid to ask those questions. And don't be afraid to bring them to us either. You may have questions that you can go ask at Equity and Human Rights. The ombudsperson is another really valuable resource for questions. Any of these people, if they feel they can't answer your question, will direct you to somebody else. The point is, don't be afraid to ask for help. Professional development. Professional development is a really important part of grad studies. In professional programs, it tends to be embedded within the formal part of the program, but in many of the research-based programs and course-based programs, it's something that you have to make a very purposeful effort to seek out and add on to your program. So it's part of that being self-directed aspect again. But there are a lot of resources available to you on campus, and you're going to hear from others who are going to be talking this morning more details, so I'm not going to elaborate on those at this point. Balance and wellness. Balance and wellness are critical factors in your success in grad school. Grad studies is hard work. It's going to feel lonely at times. You're going to feel like you're sitting in your own little corner of the world, doing your own little thing, writing away, only to have somebody give it back to you with a whole bunch of track changes comments, or if you've got an old-fashioned supervisor with lots of red pen in the margins. It can feel isolating at times. You need to build a routine and start today, if you haven't already, that includes time for yourself. You need to do some things that are important to you that aren't just school studies. You need to have balance to be well. There are a number of things you can do on campus if you're looking to de-stress. There's a whole lot of opportunities, things to do that don't necessarily cost any extra money or are relatively inexpensive. I've got a list here that's really just examples. There are many, many others. One of my favorites is when I'm having one of those days where I think, okay, I really need to work at kind of centering a little bit again and focusing. I'll go walk through the Macintosh Gallery. Western has the benefit of being one of the few universities in Canada that actually has an actively collecting art gallery on its campus. And it's a great resource. It's a great place to just go and wander through when you need a little bit of quiet time. There are free concerts in the Faculty of Music, usually a few a week, sometimes evenings through the week, noon hours on Fridays. There are always public talks, posters all over campus. There's the Grad Club. Great place to meet other people, great place to sit and read, to study, to have a bite to eat. Campus Rec. If you're the sort who finds exercising relaxing and an important part of your routine, then by all means take advantage of your membership. There are various places of worship available. And if you just want to go for a walk on campus, there are walking maps that you can get that take you through some of the highlights of the campus. My presentation has included some photos of the campus, but if you do some of the walking tour, you'll get some of the history of the campus as well. My message to you is take responsibility for your health and well-being. Recognize when you need to get help. Be proactive about the things that you need to be successful. Don't wait to have a problem. And keep in mind that you can take a leave of absence from your program. That is always an option. Whether you're just feeling like life has just piled up a little too much at the moment, or whether you're feeling like your health really can't endure doing another term of studies right now, you can take a leave of absence. What does grad studies do for you? I mentioned that, as Vice Provost, I'm sort of the Chief Administrative Officer for grad studies. What does that mean? Well, SGPS sets the standards for graduate education at Western. It coordinates the development of any new programs. It manages and oversees all existing programs. We handle all of the periodic review of existing programs. And just a point of trivia for you. Every single grad program at Western and at any university in Ontario has to be reviewed every 8 years to make sure that we're delivering quality education. So just a little bit of sort of backup for your program there, that they have been reviewed. They are good quality programs. We promote and facilitate and support any changes to programs that exist. We support the well-being and professional development and success of grad students and postdocs. And we provide advice to support grad programs, grad students, and postdocs. Most importantly, we help to answer your questions. If you have any difficulty getting answers to your questions elsewhere or don't know where to go, contact us. We act as an advocate for all grad students and all postdocs. Keep in mind that the door of SGPS is always open to you. My advice to you as parting words: ask, ask, ask. If you have questions, whether they're, where is the library? Do I really need to read this article? Ask those questions. Be self-motivated and be organized. I'm going to take a moment to do a little aside here. When I started grad school a few decades ago, I got here, and I'm a Western grad. I came to Western for my master's and PhD, and when I started my master's, I thought, I'm only taking 3 courses. Throughout my undergrad, I've taken 5 or 6 courses, and for the last couple of years, worked full-time while I did that. And I thought, I'm only doing 3 courses, and I'm TA for 10 hours a week. I thought, I'm going to be really bored. That lasted about 2 weeks when I realized I was now a couple hundred pages behind in my readings and better get going. So be organized and expect the pace to pick up pretty quickly. Take advantage of personal and professional development opportunities. There is a lot available to you, but you need to take the time to look through the opportunities and find what fits with what you're looking for. Take care of yourself. Mind your health and well-being. You can't work your best if you don't feel your best. Develop healthy work habits that focus on balance. I had the good fortune of starting my grad studies with a supervisor who, in my first meeting with him, told me that he never wanted to hear that I came into the lab or the office on weekends, and he never wanted to hear that I was working late in the evenings on campus. He said, I expect you to have a life outside of your studies, because when you finish this degree, he says, you're on to something else. He said, and whatever that career is, someday you're going to decide to retire and you're going to want something in your life. So set that pattern really early to have other things in your life. It shouldn't all be about grad studies. So work hard, but take some time to have some fun. Expect grad studies to be hard work, but expect it to be very rewarding. Welcome to Western.